Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to Comic Book Team Up. We're RJ from the Fourth Age and me. This is on his channel. This is on my channel, and we talk comics. How's it going, RJ?
Doing good.
Good. So, RJ, we were talking before we went live. RJ says you want to talk about what? Just great runs or great individual comics or what have?
One or the other. Somebody had just requested it because I did a video about great literature on my Saturday video last week. So someone had
Oh
suggested
yeah,
in the comments to do
yes,
one for comics.
yeah. I watched your video on Saturday. Yeah, all those, but none of them have pictures. RJ, what are you talking about?
Dante's Inferno has pictures. You get the right copy.
Yeah, it's funny because I was like, I think there was the only book that I didn't read was the Celtic book. And I
Right.
gotta say, I tried. I just like you said, it's difficult. Yeah, I just found it difficult. I gotta try again though. I think I have it up in my bookshelves. Yeah. If I can't pronounce the names, I have extreme difficulty, and it's prevented me from reading a lot of like Aztec and Mayan mythology. I just I just can't pronounce the names. Celt. I'm starting to think like Welsh is not a real language. It's just people pretending.
Uh,
Oh, we got people in the chat. First off, Heroic Tales 2 is still available over there on Fun by Comic. I got a lot of copies left. Uh, I'm thinking about. I actually commissioned a second printing covers, so it shows you how depleted the stock is getting. We got Vaz Vaz over here. How you doing, Vaz Vaz? Hey, Tony Grigo, how's it going? I'm sure you read all of those books on RJ's list. Oh, Tony's dragging us into politics. RJ, what are your thoughts on Rupert Lowe's Reform Party? Any chance of him getting elected over Nigel Farage? Well, Rupert Lowe, isn't he Ron Weasley? Rob, right? Rupert? No, that's Rupert Grint. I know, I'm being silly. Hello, gentlemen. Ryan Branks, how you doing? Gaelic and Welsh suck to pronounce. You telling me? Geez, they're difficult. They're difficult.
Tony, to answer your question, I'd say yes, he has a good chance of getting elected over Nigel.
Yeah, Nigel turned out to be kind of a disappointment, huh?
He's just a politician at this point. So
Yeah,
looking for people who are just regular Joes who want the country back.
yeah, yep, yep.
Okay, we'll start there, John. I
Okay.
think again, I said this many times, but don't like Alan Moore. But I think a great run of comics is his Captain Marvel or his Captain Britain, the black and white magazines, which are hard to get and hard to find a reprint. But it's a good. It's where Marvel 616 actually comes from.
Yeah, here's number two. I got number one a couple of months ago, and here's number two. I'll read it this week, and then once a month I put in an order for back issues. So I'll read it eventually. That's how I collect comics now. Barely barely read any new comics, so I read good old comics. And everybody talks about that Captain Britain run.
With Alan Davis doing the art as well, it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
I don't know why, but Alan Davis's art, it does not look. I think that a lot of English art has a look to it. His does not conform to that at all.
Yeah, I'll buy that. The writers, it's easier to tell who's a British writer and who's an American writer. But yeah, the artists, sometimes I'm like, I never knew in a million years that like, or white or black. You know what I mean? Before the days of the internet, they were just artists and writers. I didn't know what they looked like. I was surprised, not in any particular way, but like, oh, this guy's white, this guy's black, this guy's British, you know. But yeah, Alan Davis's art, it kind of fits with classic Marvel rather than because the British art, it always seems to be like a little bit, or the 2000 AD arts to me seem to be like a little bit more cartoony.
Yeah, it's kind of scraggly. Things like Death's Head and stuff like that that Marvel used to produce. It used
Yeah,
to be, they had a look to it.
they had a look to them, and then when you read them, they felt a little weird. And
Yeah.
you'll laugh at me when I say this, but like I got a full set, 1 to 15 of the original Captain Canuck,
Oh yeah.
and they read weird. Like every once in a while I forget that Canada is a different country. You know, it has different. Awesome. Like, you know, I went to Toronto many times before I met my wife and after I met my wife, and as a kid I was just like, oh, it's just another white American country. But as an adult, I'm like, I'm in a different country. You know, it's you know.
There's a really interesting, John, we'll go on this sidetrack for a second. There's a really interesting satellite photos. If you look at the satellite photos of the border, you can tell like there's a massive difference between where the border is on north and south. It's just completely different. And even if you're looking at fields or stuff like that, not, you know, cities or anything, just, you know, fields, you go out west, stuff like that. It's just so majorly different. Just people and, you know, even farmers have a completely different way of doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Arkham, one of my artists, he's doing a story for me. I love how, so he's talking about Alan Davis. I love how he uses curves versus other artists at the same time are very sharp. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I want to pick up on that because one of the things that my artist Nick Axe is doing for the pages of Crom the Destroyer, he's trying to channel not really the art style of Alan Davis, but his panel layout style. Because if you look at the panel layout style of Alan Davis, his art is extremely rounded. Everything has a rounded edge to it. But if you look at his panel layout, it's completely the opposite of that. And he tries to do the Neil Adams thing, whereas the panel and their layout actually tell a story separate from the art and the story itself.
You know, I haven't looked at Alan Davis's artwork since I started doing my own comic books. So I gotta, you know, I've only been doing my own comic books now for 2 years. You know, so I gotta look and see that. You know,
well, the funny thing is, he does a lot of one-shot stuff for X-Men, New Mutants, things like that. If you look at his normal stuff that he had on large runs like Excalibur, he has a slow burn kind of thing, and he uses the panels in a different way. But if he only has a one shot, like the New Mutants annual, or he did a couple annuals for X-Men, things like that, you can see it much more condensed.
Yeah, Tony Grigger says the Alan Moore Captain Britain run was spectacular. Everybody I have a trade paperback of it. Yeah, I got to read it again. And that was I remember reading that and I was getting that, oh yeah, this is a different country. These are people with different thoughts and opinions and ways of life. You know, it was like Alien, but like you get tricked into it because they speak English. You know what I mean? English as opposed to American English. But I you know, again, guys, if anybody has ever read the original Captain Canuck, there's something like, if you grew up reading American comics, you know, which is basically produced by New Yorkers, you know, for the most part, and then you read Captain Canuck, it just something different about it. I'm not saying bad, I'm just saying different. And I get the same feeling with Alan Moore's Captain Britain. I you don't realize it, but I guess Alan Moore adapted more American styles when he came to America, because his Swamp Thing doesn't seem British, you know. But
what about John Byrne? Do you find that the same thing happens with John Byrne?
It's funny, John Byrne's Charlton work, I get that feeling from, and
3000 AD and stuff like that.
I read his Doomsday +1.
That's it.
Doomsday +1, and you know what's funny is it was a Canadian writer. So it was a Canadian writer, and John Byrne at the time was a Canadian artist. So that kind of, and then I didn't know it at the time. Oh, I knew it when I read the comic, but I didn't know when I was watching now I'm getting it mixed up, because John Byrne also did Space 1999. That was British. That was a British show. That seemed a little off to me. But Doomsday +1 is, in my way, it's a little off. It's a little different. And again, different doesn't mean bad. I know, like, a lot of people, like I said, something's different. Different just means different, you know. Doesn't mean bad. But Doomsday +1, I would recommend it. It's kind of dated and it's charming. You know,
probably find it in dollar boxes.
Yeah. It's dirt cheap. But I'm such a John Byrne fan. I'm trying to get everything by John Byrne. His first comic book art, well, he did a thing called Raj 2000, which is why you'll see like a lot of license plates and later John Byrne work. It says Raj 2000 on license plates.
He did a graphic novel for that, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Later on, too, he went back and did it. I think that was his first creation, that he did it as a backup in a couple of Charlton comics. And then that got him his first regular series, which is Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch, which was a really, it lasted one season. It was a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon about like an anthropomorphic car being chased by anthropomorphic motorcycles. And I remember watching it as a kid. It came and went, like a million cartoons, but I went and got all of the comics because it's John Byrne art, and you could tell it's John Byrne art. And just recently I did the X-Men where they're in Murder World, the first time they encounter Arcade.
Right.
You got to remember that. Remember Nightcrawler is in the fishbowl and the buggies are coming, the cars are coming to get him. They were Wheelie from Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch. He put Wheelie's face on it. I didn't get that when I read it originally as a kid because I didn't know about the Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch comic, and I didn't know John Byrne drew it, so it's funny to see all that stuff coming back as an adult and revisiting. Yeah. And speaking of great comic book runs, you cannot get any better than the John Byrne, Chris Claremont, and I have to add Terry Austin as that X-Men run. So X-Men, I'll say even the Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum run. So I'll say from Giant Size X-Men #1 to X-Men 150 is some of the best comics you're going to get.
While I will not contradict John on that, I would say for my taste, the Mark Texeira is even better than John Byrne. I was posting some things on X, and one of the make comic women beautiful again was Mark Texeira's Dazzler. It's just beautiful.
The John Byrne women, they had just like rounded curves that I still like. I like what I like. Like he draws Storm. She's not a waif, but she's not a muscular mutant woman either. She's like a I don't know. Do they still use this term? But like a hard body is a woman that's like, she got the 6 packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She was a soft body, like she was like had womanly fat, I everybody remembers Pulp Fiction when I forget the Bruce Willis's girlfriend in the movie. She was just like, a woman with a small pot belly and like Madonna in Lucky Star. And I'm like, that's the way John Byrne drew women. I guess, you like.
That's one of the things I picked up on when I did my faux review of Marvel Team Up with Red Sonja and Spider-Man, was the fact that the way he drew Red Sonja, you could see the curve inward where things would naturally grip on her skin. Right. So, yeah.
Yep. Tony Grigo says, as much as I dislike Alan Moore, his Superman story is the greatest ever written amount of time. It's fun. Superman has like, I keep saying that Superman is like a meta character. He's allowed to break a lot of rules. He's allowed to break a lot of my personal rules. Like I want Superman to be more powerful. For the longest time, I wanted a depowered Superman. I was like, that makes him more real. But I was like, you know what? It's Superman. If one character gets to be overpowered, it is Superman. And I think a depowered Superman isn't Superman. So anyway, but that's one rule. He's the first, so he sets the standard. And he's so respected that even writers and artists that don't like Superman, don't like superheroes, or just edgelords, they always try to be respectful to Superman. Like Alan Moore, he wrote some really good Superman stories. I agree. Garth Ennis, who hates superheroes, he did a really respectful Superman story in the pages of Hitman, one of my favorite comics of all time. But I know after 2015, the rules change and people are disrespectful to Superman. But those years don't exist to me in comic book world. I have absolutely no clue what's going on in Marvel or DC after 2015. And what I do know is Hushed Whispers. New Mutants Annual he did with Psylocke was amazing. You talk about Alan Davis?
Yep.
British G.I. Joe and Transformers were very different too. Were they reprints of American comics, or they were made originally in England? That would be interesting because G.I. Joe, I mean, it's supposed to be like a world organization, right? But it's the U.S. military, you know. Always made me laugh how the main villain in Alan Moore's Captain Britain was essentially an omnipotent Maggie Thatcher. I know. Can you imagine a woman who actually wants businesses to thrive and lower taxes and strong borders? She's practically Hitler. Voluptuous. That's a good word. That's a good word. Built like a woman. Yeah. Curvaceous. These are all good words. These are all good words. Oh, as an aside, today I came up with the greatest side character. And I don't even want to tell his name, but I'm so excited about this character. Like as soon as we're done talking, I'm gonna like write up a story that I can include this character. Has that ever happened to you? You just so excited about a character?
Oh yeah, I am so excited about the fact that I'm about to finish. Well, we're finish the art for 2 books, which would be Crom the Destroyer and the last of Fade to Blue. And I'm thinking I want to write something new. Like I've been wanting to write a story for the longest time, but I'm keeping up on other things. And I'm actually writing an article for a fantasy magazine right now. I'm chomping at the bit to finish so that I can write this new story.
I just, if I get the urge to write, I always get afraid that I'm never going to do it. So I do it. I strike while the iron is hot. So I have like scripts. Like I was just saying yesterday to Phil Diaz, I could stop writing scripts now, and I probably have like another 4 or 5 years worth of scripts that I could work on. But I got an idea. I want to get it done. I want to get it done because I know my memory. I'll forget it. So that's the. And another appropriate of nothing is I got an email this morning. Somebody just said that they watched my Jim Shooter interview, and he goes, yeah, I brought he's writing like a biography of Jim Shooter, and he watched mine and he really liked it. And he was asking if he could like take portions of it and stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure. Just give me credit and let people know I write a comic book. And he goes, yeah. He goes, come October, if you give me your address, I'll mail you a copy. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'll be in a Jim Shooter biography. How cool is that?
You're part of comic history now, John. Look at that.
Oh yeah. Ooh, yeah. Everybody kiss my ring. Yeah. I'm so lucky to do that. I was like awestruck. I was like, to that whole thing. RJ John, what do you think about Captain Durag from Disney? I'm talking about. Yeah. Did you see this?
I had just seen like a headline. That's all. I don't know anything really about it.
Yeah. It's what do you think? That I say this all the time. Progressives are like they have such low opinion of black people. If they're not making them all gay, then they're reducing them to like Captain Durag stereotypes. That's the best you can come up with for a black superhero. Come on, man. I got to paraphrase Mitt Romney. I got binders full of black superheroes. I'll give you one for a price. RJ, question for you. Oh, great. Tony doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Why is that English pop culture outside of Arthurian legends cannot do heroic characters? Heroic deconstruction seems to be their milieu. There you go. That is perfect for RJ.
I think it has to do with Hobbes and Locke, quite honestly. If you're going back into like the way that they think, they don't believe in unalienable rights to begin with, and they believe in more of the Leviathan, the creation of the country. So it's much more of a submerged idea of the individual and how they act and their will, and that to me sort of circumvents, or at the very least alters, the way that they look at heroes, and the way that their heroes are expressed are a lot less individualistic, a lot more I won't say communistic, it's not that, but more of a part of like Captain Britain. We're talking about Captain Britain. Okay, Captain Britain gets his power from the islands of Britain themselves. I mean, he can go to other places, but then he starts to get depowered. It's things like that. It's a tie to the society and their culture itself, which again, I think waters down the idea of hero in their minds and how it should be portrayed. Because in America, it's like super individual, and you might want to dial back on that a little bit. But I think that is the distinction of why they really can't do it, because It's much more of a, we'll call it civilized way of looking at things. I like the more unalienable rights, and you're here, God placed you here with rights, and you're in the face of the world.
Yeah, all the exploring individual guys left and came here or Australia, you know.
Although I did mention this before a couple of weeks ago, the deconstruction part of this entire thing is because of the fact that you got so many communists quite literally going to Britain to flee to there. That's where they all went to. And the university system got overrun with these kinds of ideas, and deconstruction is just a part of postmodernism, which is a reflection of critical theory, which is a bunch of Marxist talking points.
It's Vaz says British G.I. Joe and Transformers have stories made for the UK. Different artists. G.I. Joe is called Action Force. Oh, I didn't know that. I remember hearing Action Force, but I didn't know it was G.I. Joe. Unless I'm mistaken. Action Force, he had like a cap and like with 3 colors on it, if I remember. Or am I remembering something wrong?
I don't remember that one at all.
So you wanted to talk about like great cup. So, you know, what would you recommend? So let's pretend we got 16 people watching right now on my end. Just imagine these people are interested in comics, but they don't know what to read. What would you recommend?
Let's see. I want to go with miniseries for a little bit, just because there's stuff that you can pick up, and it's a very good short story for people who are getting into comics. So, DC's OMAC is great. John Byrne art. It's a spectacular storyline as well. I don't know if John Byrne does the storyline as well, but it's in black and white, and it's great. Besides that, there's also, how do you say it, John? I always call it Farfel and the Gray Mouser. What's it?
Oh, Farfel.
Farfat and the Gray Mouser, which is also done by Marvel, I think it's a 3-issue miniseries, which is a graphic novel. Each of them are graphic novel binding, basically. That is Mike Mignola art, and again, story wise, it is great. It might be DC, I'm not entirely sure, because I know Walter Simonson did some of those stories for DC as well back in the early 70s. But those are 2 miniseries that I get people, artists especially, talking about all the time for inspiration.
Yeah, those are good. I forget if it's Marvel or DC also, but the Fat Gray Mouser. Yeah, I read all those books too. They start out good, and then they end. It's kind of fetishy. So be warned if you read Fat and Gray Mouser. I'll say, like, for just great comics, you can't go wrong. I already mentioned X-Men. You know, I'm like a broken record. George Perez, Marv Wolfman, Teen Titans. You know, for issue number 1, and don't bother with the Baxter series. Like literally the regular newsprint comics. Once they introduce Jericho, it's time to jump. That is probably the worst character ever. I hate that character, and it ruined new Teen Titans. What other runs? Avengers. I'd say like the Avengers 150 to 200 is 50 of the best comics. I think there's 1 or 2 like stinkers in the whole bunch. I'm going to start doing a series on that. I want to call it Avengers Assembled, but I think I want to wait until I'm back to 7 p.m. because if I do it at midnight, I'm not going to get people asking questions and talking.
Was it John Romita who did the majority of art for those?
No. The Avengers 150 to 200. It's a mix of George Perez, John Byrne, and
okay.
Layton. Yeah,
they're going much later then. Right.
Yeah, so good. And the art, the writers are like Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, Jim Shooter, and I know I'm missing other writers. So good. I can't wait to do this series. If you haven't seen these comics, oh my God, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. Do you want to do another one, or should I go to the next?
Yeah, sure. I'll throw another on the pile. I think it's a 12, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. I think it's a 12-issue maxi series from DC, Sword of the Atom, with who did the art? Was Gil Kane?
Yeah.
It's spectacular, beautiful, and it's a take on the character that you'll never see anywhere else. And I think it reinvented the character just for that miniseries. It's great run.
Yeah, and it was so successful. Marvel kind of copied it. Hank Pym got stuck at that size, and he had a nail for a sword, as Ant-Man. So yeah, that is a fun run, and I think you're right. I think the Atom was about to be forgotten for a little while. Yeah.
I was just looking through the X page for Bill Sienkiewicz. He did there's a run of Incredible Hulk where he did the covers for them, where he's stuck in the other world, where it's basically a mindscape. And that is a really great run. I think one of the best runs and overlooked runs for Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. Vaz, yes. The first storyline of the Teen Titans Baxter paper, yes. I will say that the first 10 issues or so of the Baxter edition. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, the New Teen Titans was a newsstand comic. And then they started a second Teen Titans series on Baxter paper, and it was a direct market comic. And it was better paper and higher price. And they were concurrent for a little while, and then they phased out the newsstand comic. The first 12 issues were really good. That was the return of Trigon, and my favorite, I forgot about this. I forgot it was Baxter. Was the Greek gods, and the what's her name, Thea, wife of Hyperion, fought the Teen Titans. And that was really good. And then after that, it was all about Jericho, and the worst character ever, just the worst.
When you're talking about DC and Baxter paper, all that comes to mind for great runs of comics is Keith Giffen's Legion of Superheroes.
Yes.
Love that. The 9-panel run, some people might hate it, but I loved his 9-panel run. He would only, if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, he would only put 9 panels on a page and would never change the layout for the entire thing. And he worked around it in a spectacular way.
Yeah, the key, I'll go, because that was also direct market, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. I'll say go back even further to the Paul Levitz Keith Giffen run with the Great Darkness Saga, and then go right into the run that so I'm agreeing with RJ. I'm just expanding it. Get pretty much from because the Legion of Superheroes used to be Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah.
Pretty much when they dropped the name Superboy and let it become just the Legion of Superheroes, right then and there, it just that was Jim Shooter writing it, and it was so good.
I got to post one of those on my X. I got to post one of those covers. It's just beautiful stuff.
What is Tony? It pains me to say the only way I can enjoy Teen Titans is the original 2000 cartoon. I never watched the cartoons. Are they any good? My friend Jimmy and I. Jimmy's a casual comic book guy. He doesn't read too many comics. So when he got into a series, it was like a treat. One of my best friends was into a comic. So that became like me and Jimmy, like we poured over the new Teen Titans. We freaking loved it. And the other series that we loved, and I also recommend this, is the Doug Moench, Bill Sienkiewicz Moon Knights. Oh yeah, like the first 30 issues or so, or the first whole run. That's just like a fond memory, because it's me. Jimmy is one of my characters now. If anybody's familiar, I know RJ's audience is watching this. Jimmy made up a few of the characters who are in my comics, because it's from my role-playing games. We're still friends. This Saturday, he's bringing over his daughter and we're playing board games. So I just love those comics, for a whole bunch of reasons. John, RJ, what would you vote for the quintessential modern day Superman story? Mine would be Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, that's a good one. Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow? Now, is that the one with the Black Lotus? I always get it mixed up. Or is that the no. Refresh me what that story was, because I think I'm getting it mixed up. Numbers and Letters wants to know, what is a comic? I don't know if he's being facetious or not, but you know what? That is a pretty good comic question. RJ, you want to take that?
Well, here's the thing. What we talk about is North American comics,
Right.
specifically American comics. The one thing I find when I post things on X and people tell me, oh, comic women have always been beautiful. Then I click on their country of origin and go, yeah, you're not in America. That's why you're saying that. You're reading manga or something else, right? Comics, quite honestly, I can't remember who said it. What was the probably, John? There was a big time author who basically said comics is an American medium. So I would sort of flip that over and say we're talking about the American medium of comics,
Right.
which is to say it's a specific size, and well, you could add the magazines into it and things like that, but
it's storytelling, sequential story. It's storytelling through words and pictures of sequential patterns,
which anyone can do.
Right.
Let me put it that way. That's the American part of it. That's the whole Jack Kirby thing. Anybody can make a comic.
Yeah, it's to me it's the blend of words and pictures to tell a story, or as Will Eisner said, it's sequential art storytelling. John, for the man who has everything is the Black Lotus story. Okay. Oh, so the man who okay. So I was the man who has everything is the Black Lotus story. That was the annual, if I remember correct, with Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. The Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow wasn't that the last issue of Superman, and then the last issue of Adventures of or Action Comics, and then Superman before the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then rebooted it under John Byrne. Yeah, that was a good story. That had the Brainiac, Lex Luthor team. Yeah, that was like the official send off of the Silver Age. And yes, and it's like Mark, and it's funny because I talked with Mark Miller, and when he talks about Silver Age Superman, you could see this childlike glee from a person who wrote some of the most violent comic books you could ever read. But like, there's something about Superman, and that's what I mean when I say Superman is like, he's beyond comics. He gets to break the rules of the comics, and like the most cynical people like Alan Moore, and I don't know if Mark Miller's cynical. I think he's a good family man in his real life, but Garth Ennis seems pretty cynical. They beam like children when they do Superman. Yeah.
I'm going to answer that question. If I would say it's a collection of stories for Superman. For me, it's also a great run of Superman comics, which is John Byrne's reinvention of Superman from issue number 1.
Okay, yes, that's your Superman recommendation.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to say that's the most I'm familiar with, because at the time when I was an edgy kid, I didn't like that wholesome, hokey Silver Age Superman. I do now. Now, and you know what got me to like it, paradoxically, is Alan Moore's Supreme run. That is a run Tony, have you ever read that? Alan Moore took over Rob Liefeld's character Supreme, and Alan Moore just told Silver Age Superman stories. He used Supreme to do it, and it's surprisingly fun. It's really good. I recommend it.
Here's a good question for you, John. I don't know if I put this on the list, but what are your thoughts on DC's Books of Magic? That was an interesting 4-issue series with characters like Mystery, The Question, Black Lotus. I think Zatanna might have been in there as well.
Yeah,
did you ever read that?
Yeah, the original 4-issue series of the Books of Magic is John Constantine, Dr. Occult, the Phantom Stranger, and Mr. E, come out of the whatever, and they're going to teach Tim Hunter. How is this for weirdness? Tim Hunter is a little boy. He lives under the steps. It is his father's house, but later on it becomes his stepmother's house. He wears glasses, and he has a pet owl, and he's the greatest wizard of his age.
And probably 20 years before you ever get Harry Potter.
Right. And the funny thing is, it was written by Neil Gaiman of Sandman fame. And somebody asked him, are you going to sue J.K. Rowling? And he said an interesting thing. He goes, that's a British trope. The boy that lives under the steps who's a wizard. He goes, and he started listing off all of these stories that I never heard of as an American that borrowed the same trope. He goes, so if I was to sue J.K. Rowling, then the person who did it before me could sue me. He goes, it's just a British trope that a lot of storytellers use, so I was like, I didn't know that. I thought, I obviously read Books of Magic first, and then when Harry Potter came out, I was like, this is just ripping off DC Comics. Lo and behold, I was an idiot. That it was just something that happened a lot over in Britain. There's a female version called The Worst Witch. It's like the same exact story, and then what they do with it is different. I mean, I'm still a big fan of Harry Potter. I love it. And I recommend the books. The movies are okay. The movies are like hors d'oeuvres. You want a full dinner, read the book. Oh, and Tony Grigo says he also recommends Chuck Dixon run on Airboy, the original run on Alien Legion. And for Batman, you can't beat the entirety of Alan Grant's run. Yeah, I will say for Batman, for me, the whole time that Denny O'Neil was the editor of Batman, you can't go wrong. Just so if you see Denny O'Neil as the editor on Batman, there you go. That's my Batman. Chuck Dixon's Airboy, I love it, but I don't know if I would tell people like who didn't know comics to pick up Airboy. Airboy is it's a weird comic. It's a World War II comic, and then the Chuck Dixon brings him back into the 80s. And there's one of my favorite villains of all time, Misery. He's this death skulled shroud, and he flies this B-1 bomber that never lands. And he calls it the air tomb. And inside of it, it's like infinite space. It's just like another dimension inside of the airplane. And it's just a graveyard of all the people that he's killed. It's a bizarre comic, and I really do like it. So and some wonderful art by Tim Truman. Oh my God, the art is spectacular. Now I'm selling you on it, but it is good, and you can get them in dollar bins.
For me, the caveat for Alien Legion, I wouldn't put Alien Legion in this list. I would put it second tier, but I would suggest people start with the volume 2 of Alien Legion, which is the Strowman run, and start there. And if you like that, then go back and read the first volume of it.
Yeah, I only read the first couple of issues of it, and it's lost in my shuffle. I gotta take it up. That was a series that I missed because I didn't like science fiction as a kid. I wanted superheroes. So everybody told me Alien Legion was good, but I think I bought the first 25 issues, and I think I read the first 8 or 9 so far. I got to go back. I got to refresh myself. I don't remember it that well. Classy to me, with a nice, beautiful cat, says the subtle details of the new Teen Titans, how the art portrayed Raven's face. Yeah. That artist is George Perez, who I always say, George Perez and John Byrne are my 2 favorite superhero comic book artists. I got to clarify. I got to clarify superhero comic book because like nobody does war like Tim Truman, so he's perfect for these airplanes and Airboy and stuff. But I love George. George Perez got off to a rocky start, but man, did he finished his career with you can't top him. It's so good. Yeah. And by the time he was on Teen Titans, he was a superstar. You're absolutely right, Classy. Have I read Kirby Genesis from Dynamite Press? I want to say yes. Could you refresh me before? Have you read it, RJ?
I have like one issue.
I want to say yes, but it's not ringing a bell. Is this like Captain Victory and Silver Star, and the 2 aliens that go off in the Voyager satellite? Am I remember it correctly?
I'm not sure about that. Let me think.
RJ, are either of you planning to offer your comics as coloring books? I will be offering the inks of all Solo Legion as coloring books. Oh, okay. I thought this was Tony Grigo. I was like, oh, Tony, you're making a comic? I misread the name in my mind. So, Ryan Banks, unfortunately, I begged and borrowed your comic. And Ryan, why did you make your comic the wrong size? It was hard for me to find a bag for it. I think you made Golden Age comic size, so I had to go get a Golden Age bag. Just busting your chops. He sent me his comic, and I read it a couple of days ago. It's a fun, all ages. It's the kind of comic you could give to your kids and not have to worry. Ryan's a good guy. His comics are all ages friendly. Planning to offer your comics as colored books. While that would be perfect for you, I don't think anybody wants my comic as a coloring book, but I could be wrong. I'll talk about it, see if anybody's interested. Because what would you do? Like, have a black and white edition and then make it oversized, because nobody would be able to color Renzo's super detailed art, as a comic book. But that's something to think about.
I'll just say that if you want something to color, you go ahead and buy a couple of copies of Crown the Destroyer, the art edition, which is in black and white and oversized.
There you go.
Magazine style.
RJ's way ahead of you. He's way ahead of you. Yeah. He's going to make an oversized black and white magazine. I forget what I ordered. I hope I ordered that, because, man, Nick Axe's art is beautiful. Really is. Really is good. I think that guy, I think you got him, and people are going to come back looking for his first comic book work appearance, RJ, because I think in the next 10 years, he's going to be in demand.
Hey, it's going to be like, when DC poached the artist from Don Chin to do Sandman.
Oh, yeah. Dan Dreberg, right? Or Sam Keith. I think it was Sam Keith.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat kicked the. Well, I said, okay. John Constantine, Mr. E, the Phantom Stranger, Dr. Occult, the Trench Broker. Yeah. It's funny that
people are forgetting about Black Orchid, though. Black Orchid was there, too.
She was in it. Zatanna was in it. But this was the original 4 that showed up. And I remember Mr. E wanted to kill Rob Hunter. Right? Tom, what was his name? Tim Hunter. He wanted to kill Tim Hunter because he was like, he could go bad. Let's just kill him now while he's weak. But they actually did a follow-up to the Books of Magic called the Trenchcoat Brigade. And while it was a 4-issue series, I think while the last issue was coming out, the Columbine massacre happened. And those 2 kids called themselves the Trenchcoat Mafia or the Trenchcoat Brigade. And that was the end of that. I love the Jugger's solo story. What is Juggernaut? Is that what you're talking about? And Arkham's going to bed. Good night, Arkham. So he gives me a mystery, then leaves. Thanks a lot. Also, a high recommended for the complete Shadow Line saga from Epic Comics. You can get each. Yeah, I remember the Shadow Line. Yeah,
I think that you'd have to be pretty deep into comic lore to get into Shadow Line right off.
Yeah, the Shadow Lines. I'm trying to remember. There was Dr. Zero was one of them, right? Why can't I remember the other ones? But I know I have them all because it didn't last too long. But I think it was like a great example of before its time. Tim Truman's art in D&D was also great. Tim Truman's art in anything is good. If read Scout, I think that is the pinnacle of his career, his art. So good. So good. I think I got some right here. Some Scout. Yeah, this is the second series of Scout right here. War Shaman. It's
now that's very British looking art to me.
Right. It's set in the way future of 2025. I love that. Comics that came out in 1986 set in the future of 2025, Oh, sorry, Juger from Alien Legion series. Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant Juggernaut. Yeah, I got to read the Alien Legion series. Everybody talks about it. My problem is at one point before I started this channel, during COVID, I was just buying so many comics because I couldn't do anything other than just read comics. And I got like millions of boxes. I no joke. I got 17 long boxes of comics that I still haven't read. I'm making progress, but not as fast as I want to. Good night, Arkham. How you doing? And by the way, I saw your. Is it okay if I show your work in progress for the cover for the comic you're working on? He put it on Facebook. It looks so good. So, what other runs you got? I'm gonna look up this art.
Quite honestly, I think if you want to go old school, go back to Captain America done by Jack Kirby. That is really spectacular stuff.
Yeah. I love Jack Kirby. Nobody does action like Jack Kirby.
Especially in his Captain America run. He was really on top of his game when he was doing Captain America.
You could tell he loved it. You could tell he loves the series.
Well, he did it as a New Yorker who used to get beaten up by gangs on the streets of New York. And that's what he took Captain America to be. He says in a lot of the interviews that he did. It's basically Captain America is some guy who is coming out on the street and, defending what is going on that everybody else couldn't get to. It's not like superhero. It's more he has a shield and he can do a couple of things that normal people can't do with acrobatics. But that, again, that limitation on the character, I think, made his storytelling great there.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm just what's going on? I was going to show some art, but of course my computer I think is dying. Oh well, yeah. I think Captain America. I think Captain America was Jack Kirby's favorite creation, so I think that love for it, the enthusiasm came off. Like, just to, like, I always remember there was one panel, and Captain America's extending his arm, and you could just see he's got like an extra muscle somewhere over here. He's got the bicep, he's got the tricep, he's got the forearm, and then there's this other muscle over here. So like you could kind of goof on Jack Kirby's anatomy, but this punch is hitting a soldier, and it's like an explosion coming out of his fist, and this guy's like flying off the ground. And I remember that panel. I must have saw that when I was 6 or 7 years old, and I still think about that, like how memorial it was. Like, I didn't give a crap that the anatomy was off. What I gave a crap about, it was fun, and and it just it was just amazing. So many times, like, I'd pretend to throw a punch and explosions would come out of my fist. So what I think, like, today people are getting a little too nitpicky with art.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
you have to put every last tread on the bottom of the boot before
right.
They'll okay it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's not the way to treat an artist, if you ask me. Your artist should be, I want to get this done. I'm going to do my best job, but get it done, get it out, get it on time.
Yeah, I mean, and certain styles allow for more wiggle room we'll say creativity with the.
Well, I'm just saying that, if these guys are trying to make a living, and to tell them to be that detailed when they only get a page rate, it's just ridiculous. I mean, let the man actually make a living by drawing art. He can't do, he has to do it in a timely manner, whoever it is. Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. This is so weird. I just transferred this art and it won't let me show it. I don't know. Oh, well. What are my thoughts on Franco-Belgian comics, specifically the works of Mobius and Metal Hurrah? I love Mobius. I don't know where I got this, but I have a full box full of heavy metal magazines. Like, I know at one point I was going nuts buying collections from people, so I must have bought a collection from somebody and didn't realize I was also getting heavy metal. I love it. I don't have Metal Hurlant, the French version. I have the American version, heavy metal. I love that art. And my oldest brother, who's not a comic book guy, not at all, but he loves Mobius and Frank Frazetta, and I kind of lump. I know Frazetta is American and Mobius is French, but I lump them together because my brother liked them. He got me into that stuff.
I quite honestly feel that French art it's like the British art. It's got its own feel to it completely. Yes. You can tell whether a French artist. I don't know what it is. It's basically, if I'm thinking about it, ultra realistic but impressionistic at the same time, which is a weird combination of things. But I love Mobius, and I love the way Mobius draws. It quite honestly kind of reminds me of Jack Kirby in a funny kind of way, because he just lets things flow. It's like, why does this guy's hat have to be 4 feet high? It makes no sense whatsoever, but it makes a good visual.
Yeah, you're probably like me. I always was aware of Mobius, like I said, from my oldest brother, and every once in a while he would pick up these heavy metal magazines. But then Marvel, the Epic Run, did these like graphic novels of Mobius. They were just labeled Mobius 1, Mobius 2, and that exposed me to like the Airtight Garage and stuff like that. I must have read those over and over and over again. And I remember at one time I wrote a comic book script that was a blatant ripoff of the Airtight Garage. I was what, like 15 years old. It's just, nobody will know, kind of thing. And I loved it. and I still have to say I'm kind of confused what is actually going on. And then the Inkle, I love all that stuff.
I think it's I can't remember if it's a one shot or it's a two book, but I said this before, but I love Mobius's Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that 2 issue, it was Stan Lee and Mobius. Yes, I remember when that came out. I just remember just looking at the cover. That was one of the first times I just, I'm a story guy, so like the art has to be good, but I read the story, and then like the second time around, back when you were a kid, you got like a few comics per month, so you read them over and over and over again. The first time I read a comic, I just read it because I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know, the story and everything. The second, third times I started paying attention to that movie. I remember I got that and I sat down and I was looking at the art, and then realizing I wasn't even reading the comic yet. That was so beautiful. We got a Man Called Plush. How you doing, a Man Called Plush? Hail, RJ. Strange thought. Is it me, or do we not get motion lines trailing behind a punch or a kick or a jump in Marvel DC anymore?
I couldn't tell you about, the last couple of years, but there was a concerted effort from about the 90s onwards to get rid of motion lines because it was too comic booky and they wanted to be more professional. Whereas for me, I have the guy doing the art for Fade to Blue. I'm keep on telling him, put motion lines in there, would you? It's like he's moving backward away from somebody who's attacking you. You got to put some motion lines in it in order to actually explain what's going on in this panel. I think motion lines are essential if you want to, do comics. You could fudge every once in a while and have a book that doesn't have them if you're going to have action, but you need movement and action lines.
I'll go even further. There's a lot of great comic book, like I call that grammar of the comic book: motion lines, the word bubbles, the thought bubbles, caption boxes. We all understand panels, gutters, the action, the drawing, and stuff like that. But like that's a language unto itself, and all of this little stuff invented, like the Japanese have their own little grammar, like the water bubble coming out of the nose means you're sleeping, things like that. But I miss the thought balloon. I brought back the thought balloon in my comics. Matter of fact, I showed off a page, a panel of the Patriarch, and he was on his knees, and he was like, I can't. I got basically said like I got to do this, or that girl will die, or something like that. I forget exactly what he says, and I just put the panel on because I just loved the way it looked. And the first comment was, "Wow, you're bringing back thought balloons," and I was just like, I am. Because
I have thought balloons too. I think they are essential. I agree, John.
Yeah, because my first issue, I did a rookie mistake. I had the Patriarch flying around by himself, so I had to have thought balloons. Otherwise, there would have been no dialogue. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have anybody to riff with. That's like the oldest trick of the book. There's a new guy, and the experienced guy tells him what's going on, so the reader could. I didn't do that. I just had him flying around, so I needed thought balloons. Otherwise, it would have been a very wordless comic. But I agree with you, Man Called Plush. I would recommend 2000 AD Slain, especially the Simon Beasley run. I don't know anything about it. Tony, since you talked about this, is there like omnibuses of 2000 AD? Like, preferably in order, like the first, I don't know, 25, 30 issues. And then, do they do that? Because I do have, pardon me, graphic novels like the DR and Finch, which was like Alan Moore's stories in from 2000 AD. The DR and Finch, he had like a run. I got the Halo Jones, which is also Alan Moore because I'm a big Alan Moore freak. And then the other one is Alan Moore's Time Twisters. It's all time travel stories, all from 2000 AD. RJ John, have either of you read Meta Barons? Yes, I love Meta Barons. I got them from the Humanoid Press. I think there's like 12 issues or 15 issues, something like that. I recommend them if you like that European style of storytelling.
I have not.
If you like Mobius and stuff like that, it's pretty good. It's very British sci-fi, So like if you like Mobius, you'll like it. It's a generational superhero, the Meta Baron, and then his son, takes over. and they become like godlike beings. It's a good comic. I recommend it. I agree. Make comic bubbles and action lines great again. No more thought balloons because modern writers no longer have inner monologue. That's true. Did you hear about that, RJ? That they're starting to find out that there's people that, like, what do they call
don't
them?
have inner mod. Yeah, they're basically NPCs. They have no inner thoughts. They just come spilling out of their mouth.
Yeah, like this aphantasia, they don't have any, and I might be mixing them up. Aphantasia, I think, is people don't have images in their head. Like
Right.
when apple. Right now, I have a bright red apple in my head. Like I could rotate it. I could kind of feel an apple in my hand right now. Like the memory of a feeling, if that makes sense. And there are people, like one of my friends, he realized that he has how do you realize that you think differently than other people? You know what I mean? Because we were like, what are you talking about? You can't see this. And then we read up and he's like, I think I have aphantasia. And he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And then other people don't have inner dialogue. Like all day long, like there's voices narrating my life to me as, and some of them are telling stories. None of them ever tell me, get a better job, save your money, make your bed. They don't say that. Yes, there are. Titan publishes them. Okay, Tony, I got to check that out. Okay, somebody is okay. Oh, I didn't get it. It's a joke. You're answering Vaz. Okay, I get it. I like that. People talking to each other.
All right, let me throw a couple of more miniseries on the pile here, John. For anybody who really liked, well, let's just say the good Marvel movies, something really good to go back to is Fantastic Four versus Avengers and Mephisto versus, because Mephisto versus different people. These were both, I think, 4-issue miniseries and printed on Baxter paper, both of them, if I remember correctly, but really great contained stories in themselves.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who the writer was for that. I remember that was a 4-issue series. They did a bunch of them, like it was first Mephisto, then they did the X-Men versus the Avengers, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember the X-Men Micronauts 4-issue series?
Oh, I don't think I have all 4 of those. I think I only have like 3 of them. But yeah, that was like early 1981, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was when Micronauts was super big. That's a run, guys. The first 11 issues of Micronauts, the Michael Golden, Bill Mantlo. Yes, it's a ripoff of Star Wars, but man, it's so good. So good. Beautiful art. It's all the Star Wars tropes, the princess, the rebellious guy, there's basically there's a order of Jedis called the Enigma Force. You know what I mean? It's every Baron Karza might as well be Darth Vader. It's so good though. So good.
Here's an interesting one, John. Let me ask you if you read this. I think that Marvel has completely screwed up the whole Alien franchise and everything else that they're doing with it. The original first run of Dark Horse Aliens, I think, was a really, really good series.
I'll take your word for it. I never read it.
It's black and white.
Yes, and it looked gorgeous. I remember I could picture the covers in my head. I remember seeing it. But again, when that came out, I didn't want science fiction comics. I wanted superhero comics. And I think, and I'm sure Tony can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that came out after Alien 3. And I hated Alien 3 so much, I was done with Alien. Like, I love the first Alien movie. Everybody loves the second Alien movie. And Alien 3, I was just so disappointed. So those 2 reasons. I wanted superhero comics, and the third Alien movie disappointed me, so I never picked that up.
Here's a good one for anybody who, let's say, kind of likes punk music and things like that. Continuity Comics, Neil Adams, Cyber Red was a really good series for anybody, and it only lasted, I don't know, it was like 18 or I can't remember how long it lasted, but it was basically a long mini series. But that was a really good series, I find.
Yeah, I remember that. The Continuity Comics. They were hard to find, right? Were you able to just pick them up? Like
There was the place where I was living at the time. There was like 7-Eleven right next to the only McDonald's in town, and I would always go to McDonald's and then over to the 7-Eleven to get these continuity comics because they had like that was the only thing they had on their spinner rack. It was the only place I could find them.
Yeah, because I remember wanting to get a few of them because it was all like Neil Adams' beautiful artwork, and I it took me a long time before I could get full runs of them. For whatever reason, over by me, they were hard to get. Alessandro Salvo, his eyeball staring at me makes me feel guilty, is asking, RJ, why do progressives like vampires so much, in your opinion?
Because they suck the life out of things.
You're joking, but I think that's the truth, is that they don't create. They need other warm-blooded actual humans to exist. Seriously, I'm being silly, but what do they create? They are like body snatchers that just show up after somebody else already did something, and then they change it, and at the same time they want credit for doing the most basic stuff. Oh, we hate Nazis. Like, yeah, well, name somebody who likes a Nazi. Normal people don't like Nazis. What's wrong with you? And then, oh, we like Dungeons and Dragons, but we're going to change everything. Oh, it's too hard. THAC0 makes no sense. I can't understand it. Let's dumb it down. Blah, 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 blah. Warhammer. I always love Warhammer. I love Warhammer. Oh, let's change the whole mythology because my gender identity politics doesn't match this thing that's been out for 40 years. They're vampires. They turn it.
It's funny you should say that. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I've said this many times before. In the Marvel Tomb of Dracula series from the 70s, there is a cult that worships Dracula. And what they do for a sacrifice is take creative works that have never been published and no one has seen and purposely destroy them.
Oh, wow. I have that series. I don't remember. I got to go back and check it out. Oh, wow. That is actually pretty it's a pretty brilliant idea. I was thinking of a creature that exists on words that are forgotten. Like, he's like a memory, and like like when you can't remember where you left your socks or your wallet, it's because he devoured that memory. Things like that. So like there's words that were common. Like everybody says, oh, that RJ's disgruntled, but nobody ever says gruntled because that creature ate that. He ate that word.
Gremlins. That's what I would call them, John.
Yeah.
Thought gremlins, I guess.
Let's see. What's the next question? Tony Grigo, John, thank you for all the questions, guys. It saves me from actually thinking, and nobody wants me thinking. RJ, John, do you get frustrated when you see small dynamic panels that could make great splash pages or 2-page spreads? I absolutely do. I prefer less panels but larger cinematic spreads. Now you're making me aware of it, but like when I read a comic book, and only recently, now that I make comics, do I look at, I would have done this different, or this is a mistake, or I get what he's doing, but this didn't work out. Like, I do things like that now. I just read a comic the other day, and what drove me nuts, and this is a wonderful comic, it just happens to be here, but like, it was the regular Z pattern, and then you turn the page, and it was like this across 2 pages, but it wasn't clear. Oh my God, that drives me nuts. So I like, so far I haven't, this would have been a good splash page. I haven't encountered that yet, but I do struggle when I'm writing scripts. Should I make this a splash page? And Aaron Sparrow read a couple of my scripts, and Brian Christow read a couple of my scripts. And these are guys I respect their writing a lot. And it's funny because they both read the same scripts and they both had different criticisms. And like I said, I respect both of these guys. So it really made me realize that everybody's different. Because one guy said this should be a splash page. And one guy said, didn't mention that this should be, like, if it was objective, then they both would have said this should have been a splash page. And then only one of them said this ending should have been over here, and you should have done this and made this the last page. You know what I mean? So, like, what you're seeing is what you're seeing, and what RJ is going to see is what RJ is going to see. And all I got to say is, it's kind of like an instinct, you know. Like, I'm sure if me, RJ, and Tony, and Vaz, and everybody in this chat right now, if we all got the same story, like whatever, we brainstormed as a committee and came up with a story for Superman, and then we all went to write a full script, it would be completely different, but it would all be the same story. So who did it right? What do you feel about that, RJ?
Well, I'll answer one thing first. There's an interesting thing that I saw Nick do for Crom the Destroyer. And when the panels didn't go Z, he did a fun thing where he made the bottom of the panel into a triangular shape instead of a flat, so that it draws your eye downwards towards this panel instead of going in the Z pattern, which I thought was brilliant.
That's the same thing, because he sent me a page a while ago, and he just said, read this page to be in order, you know, and he had temporary words put in, and I read it in the correct order, and he goes, oh, thank God. So I wonder if that was the same page, you know, but I was like, yeah.
Although the dynamic panels that you would want to make something better. I don't know. Are you still there, John, or am I gone? I can't really tell. Anyways, I love comics in the fact that you have these books which you can have spectacular art just sandwiched in the side because there's so much of it. That being said, there's a panel from the Valiant Heroes that Renzo did, and I basically said to him, that is so beautiful, I want you to turn that into a poster. Okay,
I'm back. You were always here. It was me that was gone. Yeah, I like his art. So what do you think that, like, is it an art or a science making a comic?
A bit of both.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, you got to have a splash page, either first or second page, one or the other. You have to. That's the way my books start. I always start with action, and it doesn't seem to me like, let me put it this way. When I get a splash page, it's not me debating it in my head. It's time for a splash page.
I don't do it's time for a splash page. It's like this necessitates a splash.
Well, that too. I mean, like you're in the middle of a battle or something like that. Right now, when I was doing the last script for Fade to Blue, there was I think it was like page 6 of 8 because the chapters are 8 pages each. I didn't do a splash page, but I did a 3-panel page where the first panel takes up the majority of the page because you have an introduction of a new character and the only place you saw him before that was the page before in a small panel, the last panel on the page. And then he jumps into the air with a flaming sword. So, you know, to me, not quite a splash page, but introduction. So yeah, there's definitely necessity for splash pages, and the story demands it at some point.
Yeah, just like it's just a feel. Like I'll write a script, and I'm like, this all belongs on one page, like, you know, 6 panels, 5 panels, 3 panels, whatever, and then like, okay, this is where I go to the next page. I can't explain it, but I just feel like, okay, this is all one page. This is the next, and then I and I know other people do it, and I've seen it in comics that I just read recently. I don't like to change the location until we change a page. You know what I mean? Like if we're on page 7 or we're reading page 7 and there's 4 panels on page 7, the third panel is not going to be a different location. You know, we're on Earth. Me and RJ are talking, and then also panel 3 is Jupiter. You know, I find that to be too jarring. So that would either be the next page, or better yet, the page flip.
The way of looking at there is a way of looking at this which is almost scientific, and it's the Neil Adams way of panel layout, which basically states that your panel layout and how the panels go on your page and everything else that has to do with your panels on the page has to do with the tempo of the reading, and the tempo of the reading demands how your panels are laid out and everything else.
Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. That's a better way to explain it. Yeah. Uh, uh, have either of us read George R. R. Martin? I've never read anything by George R. R. Martin. I take that back. I read his very first work. It was Doctor Weird, a comic book in the early 70s. That was the very first thing he ever wrote. I read that, but I've never read any of his prose. So I haven't read his Wild Card Superheroes. Is it good? Have you read it?
I haven't read it. Did he ever do? I can't remember. Who took over the Wheel of Time book series? Wasn't him, was it?
Robert Jordan, and then the name is right there. The same guy who did Red Rising. Brandon Anderson, Brandon something. I know RJ will pop in any second and save me. Brandon.
No, I can't remember.
Brandon Sanderson, is that his name? Brandon Sanderson. Yes. Thank you.
So no, I haven't read any George R. R. Martin. Everybody keeps telling me and is like, no, thanks.
I'm kind of interested in reading the Fire and Ice books, but that fat guy's got to finish them first because I'm not reading them. I'm not getting involved in another Robert Jordan situation. Finish your books, Fatso, and then I'll read them. That's my deal to you. I know you're waiting for me, RR. Finish your books. I'll read them. The Edge Knight comic book adaptation was good. Yeah, who wasn't that? Micah Miller drew that or something. But Tony's dragging us into politics. RJ, what are your thoughts on the Netherlands' plan to tax unrealized gains?
Well, let me just tell you, it's how they do it here in Canada, and it is the worst thing in the bloody world.
That was the closest we ever got to you cursing. Oh,
yeah. So I write superhero comics, and I have to not own the characters for the comics that I write because they would be considered property that is worth something, and I would have to pay taxes on them. It is a nightmare.
Right. Look at it this way. I got a large comic book collection. I got to pay taxes on it every year. I can't afford it, so I have to sell my comics. It's tyranny. All it is.
It's communist, and then get rid of all. You'll own nothing and be happy.
Right. And okay, so I have unrealized gains. So so I have a 401k. My 401k invests in the stock market. So it goes up. So I have to pay taxes on it. But what if it goes down? Does the government reimburse me? It's absolute tyranny. Wealth, and I get so mad when people say, "Oh, the wealthiest people don't pay taxes." Well, you don't pay taxes on wealth. Like I have a lot of wealth. This stack of comic books is wealth. My chair is wealth. My board game's wealth. My refrigerator is wealth. Do I pay taxes on them? No. I still think property taxes is one of the most evil taxes. I got to pay rent to the Lord, the government. Dear Mr. Government, can I please exist for another year on your property? I thought we had private property. It's not private property if they can take it away from me. Yep. What are my thoughts on New York City's increasing property taxes? He's increasing property taxes, and he's raiding the New York City city workers' pension funds to do this. And I just have to laugh. I'm like, all you school teachers that voted for him, there's your pensions. There's your pensions. I'm pretty sure the cops and the firefighters didn't vote for this guy, but overwhelmingly the school teachers did because they're all communists. There you go. You get what you voted for. And it's funny because we have C division electricians that work directly for the city. And for the longest time, it was like if I didn't find out about it until I was too old, but like you work for the C division, you get the same amount of money as I get. You guaranteed work, so you never furloughed, and 20 years and you can retire with city benefits. Good thing I never took that, huh? I would have been screwed. Turns out that the harder option was the better option. Yeah, New York's screwed. All I could think of is I'm praying that this is like everybody has that drunk uncle or cousin. I'm hoping that this is New York City hitting its rock bottom, and they realize this flirtation with socialism and communism is wrong, and they bounce back. That's what I hope. But I also know that New Yorkers are idiots, and they're importing a foreign population who don't care. They don't have pensions and investments, and they just work in, on hot dog carts in the streets or DoorDash. You know what I mean? They don't care about any of this long-term stuff. They're just here to strip mine the city and then go back to wherever it is they came from. So and then they vote while they're here. So I hope that this is the bottom out point, but I don't think it will be. I think, I hate to say it, but like I think we need a Sulla in America. Like we need like the democracy's over. That the Democrats, as soon as they get power back, they're going to arrest everybody. They're going to break every rule. They obviously don't care about the Constitution. They obviously don't care about due process. So they're doomed if we ever get back into office. So like we got to prevent them. How do we prevent them? We need a freaking dictator. Like the republic's over. That's the point that I'm at. Like we need like a guy that, and of course we could have a good guy, but for how long? 20, 30 years before we get it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, and I'll be gone. You youngins will have to deal with it. Sorry, doom and gloom. Comic books.
Okay, we'll get back to comic books. You're describing the world falling into barbarism. Let's go back to a great run of comics. Inside a great run of comics is, I think, the best Marvel run of Conan comics is a 3-issue, the Haiku trilogy, which is 207 to 208, done by Val Zemeckis did the art, and Christopher Priest, I think, did the story. That is, like, you want a really good standalone story for Conan that you can read. Well, actually, it is tied in with the stories before it, but you can read it in itself. And I love the Val Zemeckis art. It is spectacular.
I've been getting Conan the Barbarian, the original series. I think I'm up to issue 18, so I'm way far away from what that. So, and I'm liking him as is. So, it sounds like the best is yet to come.
My brother bought me Conan the Barbarian #1 from Marvel for Christmas.
Oh, cool! Good brother. You know what my brother got me?
Tau.
Hasn't even been to my house yet. I would recommend Terry and the Pirates. Oh, I bought a hardcover, Terry and the Pirates #1. I forgot that I even owned it. It's upstairs. I got to get it and read it. Yeah, Terry and the Pirates. I Milton Caniff. Yep. I got I've been getting a lot of like new strip comics because that's another hole in my collection. I miss you, RJ. Do you? I miss newspaper comics.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I miss that. That's why I included one in my comic. RJ and me. I'm trying to come up with because you read the RJ and me strip in my comic, right? Yeah.
Yep.
It had a theme. Meeting RJ, me meeting RJ, the Bigfoot, and then introducing RJ to comics. That was so. I'm trying to come up with like another theme that I could do, like 7 strips about for the next. If you have any ideas, Art, now that the cat's out of the bag and you like it, if you have any ideas, let me know and we'll put it in the next issue of Heroic Tales. RJ, from what I understand, the difference between the American Revolution and the French Revolution is that the founding fathers were not utopians. Yeah, they were realistic. They were really the American founding fathers were realistic, and they understood that government is bad. Whereas the French Revolution, those guys, they got rid of religion and replaced it with government.
Literally.
Yeah, I'm not even joking. I'm not even exaggerating. They believed in, they were the natural result of progressives. And you know how we had cancel culture? Well, they had cancel culture too, but it was literally killing people. What was his name? Murad? the guy living in the bathtub. And I'm not even joking when I say the guy living in the bathtub. He had a skin condition, so that when his skin got dry, it was itchy and unbearable. So he literally lived in a bathtub, and he wrote articles and wrote articles, and he would just say like, RJ's an enemy of the state, put it in the newspaper, and then people would pull RJ out of his house and guillotine him. So people who pissed him off, people who criticized him, it was no longer about, the perfect life and people's rights and stuff like that. It was cult of personality. And can you imagine if Comicsgate had that much power, or pre-Comicsgate, Marvel, DC, that's real cancel culture, death sentence, to the point a woman came, because people would come to him while he was in the bathtub and give him names. Phil Moskowitz is an enemy of the state. He did this. He would write an article about him. He would get dragged off in the night, guillotined the next day. So this woman who's I think it was her father or brother would killed like that. She came in and she had her knitting needles and she stabbed him. And that's where that painting, The Death of Marat. I mean, it's fascinating. It's amazing. But like, that's progressivism. You're going to tell me if during COVID, if all those people yelling at you for the masks, if they could have you killed, you would have been killed. And they would have been self-righteous about it. So yes, the founding fathers, for all their flaws, and they had flaws. I'm not a blind person. They were amazing in the fact that they had restraint. And that was the difference. These I was about to say John Wayne, the founding father, John Wayne, George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, all those guys, they had restraint. It was amazing to get 300 of these people all together writing a constitution. And they all had the same fear of the government, a good, healthy fear of the government. And it's why our Constitution is the longest surviving Constitution. It's amazing.
And they're the flip side of the French Revolution, because even though a lot of them were deists, the idea of unalienable rights can't really exist without the idea of God being there.
Yeah, it says it in, we bestowed these inalienable rights by our Creator. I know I'm getting the exact wording wrong. I mean, this is, my wife laughs at me, but I keep my little copy of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution on the desk so I can argue with fools. It really is. It really is a testament. And I just get so mad. And to the fact that I'm saying I think it's over, just shows you like how the pit of despair that I'm living in, Yep, like to the point it's like get your supplies in the house. Go to church, everybody. It's coming. John, you should release a weekly show covering all the accomplishments of the New York City mayor. Yeah. Me putting a bullet in the revolver each week. John and RJ, as a hero, would you rather go into the future not knowing the technology, or go into the past and miss today's conveniences, or go into a dimension where you don't know the physics? Well, going into the dimension where you don't know the physics is a death sentence. So I'm ruling that out. I have fantasies of like a time machine that like I open up the door right there and there's a portal to like 1947, right after the war, things are good. And I go into that portal and I'm in a house in 1947 and like I have a family there, and I know the stock market. I know who wins all the Super Bowls, so I can make the right bets. I could buy some good comic books and then bring the comic books into the portal here into 2025. You know what I mean? And so I would rather go into the past. Going into the future, I don't have much hope for the future. The future is not going to be good, Ryan. I'm sorry. You have more faith than me.
I would agree. I would go into the past just because, well, it'd have to be a very specific place and time. I wouldn't go any farther back than the medieval period, although I always think to myself, I should have been a medieval person. I should have been born in a medieval village. I would have fit right in there.
Yep. Yeah, you would have. My wife and I, every once in a while, we have like these fun talks, and she's like, I would like to go back in time and meet Jesus. And then, of course, I'm like, yeah, but you infect everybody with your disease. You wouldn't understand the language. you would immediately be declared a witch because here you are in the Middle East with your big bright blue eyes, things like it's just like you got to ruin everything. So, so where would you go? And I go, after World War II, you see the ships pulling in and all the sailors and soldiers just walking through like the harbor and everybody's cheering. Just get one of those uniforms and just pop up into that crowd, and because like for the next 20 years, everything's great. The stock market's booming, America's happy, music is great, comic books are great, you can get a job, just showing up and acting happy, yeah. How was the war? I really don't want to talk about it, I understand the language, I'm not really going to get people sick. I'm not going to get sick. The left doesn't believe their opponent should have a voice. Absolutely. When they say we want a dialogue, what they mean is shut up and listen to us. They killed the guy who wanted to have a dialogue. They killed the guy who was having the dialogue. Do you remember how outraged everybody was when we found out about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky? It was like a year. Now we're finding out we have cannibals running the government and everybody's just going about their business. It's unbelievable. Like I don't even like talking about it. I'm like having bad dreams. That's why I want to talk about comic books. Sounds like what Biff did back to Biff. Yeah, Biff's right. Yeah, he had that sports book, right? That's funny. RJ, what are your thoughts on Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, or do you prefer Ridley Scott's Blade Runner?
If we're going one or the other, I would go with the short story rather than the movie. But those kinds of dystopian futures are not, they're not something I terribly gravitate towards. Quite honestly, speaking of the question that I answered earlier, when I wrote my novel manuscript that I have, it's set in the future, but it looks like the past. There's a couple of computers here and there, but it's basically, we've devolved, let's say, societally into the fact that people become more rustic and go back to almost medieval like living. So I'm not really into the cyber rad, what do you call it? I don't know, ghost in the shell kind of idea for the future. All right. I don't know what's up with John. We keep losing him, or you're losing me, one or the other. So I'll just keep talking. Let's see. Sound Engraver is here, and I just want to give a shout out to Sound Engraver. Anybody wants to find a good channel that does some interesting deconstruction of music and other kind of pop culture, go over and listen to Sound Engraver. She has a good channel, just to let everyone know. And then we'll throw another great comic run on the pile. Again, since John, to me anyways, is frozen and I can't hear anything that he's saying. Great comic run. Let's see. Well, the original Savage Sword of Conan, if you want to go sword and sorcery, the first, these are really expensive comics books, if you want to call them that. You can find reprints of them though, but the original run of Savage Sword of Conan is really, really good. I can't remember. I always get this title wrong, but I think it's issue 2. The story is Conan on the Cross is what I always call it, but it has a different name to it than that. It's basically where they get the visuals for Conan the Barbarian, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, where they nail him to the tree. That's the visual. That's where it comes from. And they did a really good reprinting of it in color for Marvel Treasury Edition. I can't remember what number it was though, but it's Marvel Treasury Edition is an oversized book, and you get to see the real detail within the art as well as it being colored. So that is a spectacular thing to own. If you could find that Marvel Treasury Edition that reprints Savage Sword of Conan #2. And you could probably find that for not too much, certainly a lot less than you would find it for Savage Sword of Conan #2. Let's see what else we got. Just thinking off the top of my head of really good comic runs. There is, let's see. After the Mr. Fix-It run within the Incredible Hulk, which was basically, I think there was the Todd McFarlane run, and then there was a separate run after that, which again, you get into some really good lore for Incredible Hulk. There is so many, honestly, quite honestly, people sleep on the Incredible Hulk over the years because there's so many good runs in that book itself. What are your thoughts, John? Now that you're back,
the internet just went out. I'm using the hotspot for my phone now. I don't know what's going on, so probably gonna have to go reboot my modem after this. I have no idea what you're talking about. I just heard you say Incredible.
Yeah,
Hulk.
I was saying there's a lot of good comic runs in Incredible Hulk, a lot of good separate stories, because most people took the Incredible Hulk when they changed the teams for it and they went in an entirely different direction.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, yes. The Peter David run is vastly different than the John Byrne run, which is vastly different than the why can't I think it's Greg Pak? Yeah. The Hulk is a series of series. Still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
I was just now I'm all paranoid.
Well, if you don't want to drain your phone or your data, we can wrap this up. Otherwise, I'll keep talking for another while.
Keep talking. It's fine. I don't have a data plan. I have an unlimited plan, and it's plugged in, so I'm cool.
Okay, so
present day trouble shouldn't dictate how. I know.
I was going to say another good mini series that people like, spectacular mini series, is the graphic novels for Nick Fury and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, that is Steranko did the covers, and I forget who did the interiors, but that was S.H.I.E.L.D. was corrupt from the inside, and Nick Fury one man against an entire organization, and that comic killed off one of my favorite secondary characters, Clay Quartermain, and they never brought him back, and they never mentioned him. He is like the true character that died. He was like everywhere in Marvel in the early 70s, and then they killed him off for that series, and no one's ever mentioned him since. So let's hear it let's pour out some for our dead homie.
One of the things, another really good run, and I was so dismayed with myself when I got to talk to Mike Baron, because I think I flubbed that interview a lot and didn't talk about, as I was a little bit fanboying the entire time, but his reboot of the Wally West Flash, again, that's essential reading if you ask me.
Yes, it's funny because one thing I love about that series is he takes a realistic look at superheroes, which is an oxymoron, not an oxymoron, but contradiction in terms. So I'm trying to be more real world-ish with my superheroes, but there's only so much you can do before you erase the magic of superheroes. So like Mike Baron's Flash, where the Flash has to eat a lot of food to keep the metabolism up, to have the calories to run that. I love stuff like that. Like if you ever read the Elementals, he has the perfect mix of magic, physics, and superheroes. That's what I want to go for. But you made me think of it, because the Mike Baron Flash run is kind of the field that I want to go for. As far as, like Silver Age Superman might as well have been God, you know what I mean? And then some superhero comics, it's so realistic with the physics that it's not fun. But yeah. How was your Ash Wednesday?
Oh, good. Started off good. I went to Mass at 11 and continued on with my day from there, which, I think is going to be a good Lent. Sandra Graver, thank you very much for asking.
Yeah, I'm a bad person. I forgot it was Ash Wednesday until I came home, and my wife is in a non-denominational church, and she is like, I grew up Catholic and she grew up Anglican, so she did like some Catholic prayers, so I was like, why? She goes, oh, because it's Ash Wednesday. I was like, RJ's gonna be mad at me. so thanks a lot, Sound Engraver. I was trying to keep it a secret that I forgot it was Ash Wednesday. RJ John, what do you think of European? We already talked about this. We love them. We were talking about Tex Weiler and Metal Erlant and all of those. I love European comics. I think metal European comics is.
Oh, we lost John again. I think we lost John again. Again, I can never tell if you lost me or we lost John. Are you back? Great.
It's me. It's me. It's my internet is crazy. Sorry. But what I was saying is, I think like once a year, produce like an oversized, beautiful piece of work for like 200 pages. That's the way to go. Rather than it's kind of bad once every 6 years. You know who I'm talking about? Comics King.
That makes me think of, what is it? Is it Simon Beasley that did the painted graphic novel? Was Bond Destiny? I can't remember. I don't think it was. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is some beautiful books out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry if my internet keeps going out. I don't know what's going on. So, what else do you want to say? I'm afraid to talk because I feel like I'm just going to turn off in the middle of a sentence.
No, I'm just trying to think of, besides the fact I always mention Walter Simonson's Thor, which got to be thrown on the pile as my number one pick for a comic run of all time. But
I'll second that. I think that's my favorite mainstream comic book run of all time also.
I'm just trying to think of some other really good books and really good comic runs because I've been focusing mostly on miniseries. But those are good things to get into comics with.
A lesser known Fantastic Four run is Fantastic Four 160 to I'll say 225. That encompasses Joe Sinnott, George Perez, Marv Wolfman, Len Wein, and John Byrne's first run on the Fantastic Four. It's like the forgotten first run of John Byrne, where he was the artist. So good, so good. You had everything: Skrulls, Galactus, Salem 7, Submariner, everything you want in Fantastic Four, and of course the original Jack Kirby, Stan Lee. Get those omnibuses, pure magic. Oh, the eternal question. Tony Grigo wants to fight now. Todd McFarlane says that the art is more important than the story. Did we talk about this last week, RJ?
No, we didn't. But I've seen some things since then.
Any thoughts?
My thoughts are that the best way for a comic to work correctly is that your art and your story have to pull in the same direction, so they have to be complementary to each other. To say one should eclipse the other is to disrespect the art form of comic books.
I am not going to disagree in the slightest. I'm just going to elucidate. I'm going to explain more. I think good art in a comic is a given. If you have bad art and good writing, nobody's going to buy your comic. You know what I mean? You have to have good art just to get it off the ground. So, but if you don't have a story, like Todd McFarlane's like, I could tell a comic with great art, but to me, that shows that he doesn't understand what story is. Spawn. Okay, so the first page is a splash page of Spawn. The second splash page is him thinking about when he got killed, and now he's in the ground and he meets the devil, and then he's coming back up. That's all writing. That's all story. That's all written down someplace. Because if you don't have writing, then you just have any old image. You know what I mean? Like when you open up the comic book, it's not Spawn, and then the next is Supreme over here, and the next is Spider-Man over here. And you know what I mean? The fact that it all flows, or at least it should, Image Comics was terrible about this, shows that it's a story. That's writing. Like when you open up my comic and there's a splash page on the very first page, you see Boss Moxie in the bank and everybody like whatever. That was all words that Renzo turned into beautiful art. It's writing. The very pose of Boss Moxie, the fact that he has a machine gun in his hand, the fact that there's 4 beautiful girls surrounding him. You know what I mean? So it's it's inseparable. It's alchemy. A comic book is a rebus of great art, great writing, and you can't separate them. Even the G.I. Joe Snake Eyes silent issue, that's all writing turned into art. So to me, Todd McFarlane, I'm going to get very crude, RJ. Cover your ears, RJ. It's Ash Wednesday. Todd McFarlane showed his ass. He doesn't get it. And the fact that how many people lasted more than 20 issues of the original Spawn run? He had to hire and get good writers because he always had good artists, Capolo and stuff like that. But nobody was talking about Spawn for 20 years. Now everybody's talking about Spawn. Why? Because he got good writers. So there you go. That's my answer.
Okay, let me add another miniseries to the pile of essential reads for someone who loves comics. Ann Nocenti's and Art Adams' long shot run, which is 6-issue miniseries.
Great art. Oh my God. That's one of the, it's, and here I just talked about great writing. That's one of the few comic books I will talk about just the art.
I think Ann Nocenti's writing on that was really good too.
Yes. I'm not saying the writing is bad, but you know, I remember specific panels. That was the very first time I remember, like, he threw something. Like, I think he threw his daggers, and the daggers were coming out of the panels. And I thought that was so cool. He was like reaching, and he was like almost using the gutter to brace himself to pull them out. Oh man, it was, I love that. I fell in love with Art Adams' art. I think that was the first time I was ever exposed to Art Adams' art. Yes, and the story was great. I love Ann Nocenti's writing. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
We're talking about Ann Nocenti. I also loved her Daredevil run. I didn't love how it ended, but as it began, I honestly think that was one of the best Daredevil runs that people sleep on.
Yeah, I agree. She had the unenviable task of following up Frank Miller on Daredevil. Poor girl, you know. And in a way, it was a blessing because nobody else wanted to do it. And she was a secretary at the time. So she said, I'll do it. And everyone's like, go. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to follow up Jimi Hendrix? You know what I mean? Nobody else wanted to do it. So they got her. And she went in a different direction, and she did a great job. If people would be talking about her run more often, if the Frank Miller Daredevil run didn't exist, people would be talking about her run. You know, it's like I keep saying, the Martin Pascal run of Swamp Thing. He got overshadowed. He did 1-18, and then issue 19, Alan Moore took over. You know, unfortunately, Alan Moore became that superstar, but that Martin Pascal run was really, really good. Really, really good. The deep question: do you think that there's a revival of Christianity among young people?
Yeah, definitely. It's basically, what did I can't remember who said this like 5-6 years ago, that that conservatism is the counterculture, and that counterculture needs some kind of guidance, and it's them coming back to Christianity. Quite honestly, there are like young people from my family. They're drawing in people that have never gone to church before. We're talking about, you know, teenagers or barely teenagers wandering into a church without their parents. That's the kind of level of things that are happening.
I was at lunch break at work today, and I was reading that I don't understand this, so maybe you guys can explain, but there's like a game called Roblox that all I knew that there was like people like grooming kids, but there's like they could all talk and they could build a world, that these kids are like building churches and having like Bible study groups in Roblox. So it's like a kid sitting at home talking with the kid across the country, and they're all discussing Bible story. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. My wife joined a church, and she says it's growing every week. There's more and more people, and it's a lot of young people. You know, guys at work are talking about church. I'd never heard so much church talk. So yeah, I heard that Christianity is the biggest growing religion in North America and Europe. So good. And I gotta say, like, that, do you know what's his name? Hitchens? What's his first name? Richard?
I know you're talking about, but I don't remember his first name off the top of my head.
He's like an evangelical atheist, and he said, man, I would rather live in, you know, the Christian culture than what's coming, you know. So, you know, too little, too late. No, maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's not too late. I know. I'm getting down on world events these days.
Yeah. I want to throw this out to you, John. I don't know, because someone had mentioned, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they didn't realize that Turok, Son of Stone, was a comic book, but it was a comic book from like 10-cent comics from Dell. Those are really good comics. You want to go back to some really, you probably find them online somewhere. I have a comic book archive where they have really old comics online. I should go through it one of these days on one of the streams. But Turok Son of Stone is one of the things I grew up on, and they were the just beaten up old comics that everybody read if you wanted to read something that was just fantastical, because you have basically these two guys who are American Indians and they're fighting dinosaurs, if you don't know Turok.
Yeah, I remember those Dell comics. They had like painted waxy covers. Like they felt weird.
Yes.
So I definitely had problems as a kid, because I remember when I was a kid, comics were everywhere. Everybody had comics. You went to somebody's house, they had comics. It was just the way it was. And I always gravitated towards the Marvels. I love those characters. And every once in a while, I'd see like Dell Comics or Gold Key of the Phantom, Turok. What's the other one? Dinosaur Hunter, and then Magnus Robot Fighter, all the Dell and Gold Key comics. And I just remembered I didn't like the way they felt. You know what I mean? Like they had a weird texture, and I definitely had problems. But yeah, I wish I still kept them. I wish I kept them. Everybody's like, oh, they're so good. Tony, there's a very good video on Don Rosa search why Disney wants to erase this beloved cartoonist from history. Wow. Disney treated Don horribly. Oh my God. I'm going to check that out. I know you're telling Tony to watch it, but I'm going to watch it. That's why he says to get the Fantagraphic edition instead of Disney. Fantagraphic, I like Fantagraphic. They reproduce things very faithfully. They do a good job, oversize it. They digitalize the art. So Fantagraphics does a good job whenever they, the Marvel reprints, they're not as good. But Fantagraphics and another company will reprint Marvel comics. They do a better job than Marvel. It was the nonsense of this world that made my mother go back to church. Yep. So young and other generation. Yeah, absolutely. We're being shown absolute evil. And like we unfortunately we are living in is it Pascal's wager? Because
yes.
Yeah, Pascal's wager is like, what do you got to lose? And it's like, this is the other side. So it's like, you might as well. I mean, even if you're wrong, at least you're in church, even if there is no God, that's the other side. That's what they're doing. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I'm just thinking about it. It's like, I don't know. It's like Medusa. I don't want to turn to stone just by looking at it. John and RJ, the success of Diary of a Wimpy Kid and minimalist black and white art style shows that a great story can be told with minimal. Yes, I absolutely agree, Ryan. The example that I always bring up is a One Punch Man. I worked at a job, and my job was to unload and load the trucks, that came in. So I spent a lot of time next to the security guard whose job was to check all the trucks, coming into this hospital. So you had to be searched really, really good. So me and him spent a lot of time together. But the electrical supplies had to get into the building. That was my job. And he explained to me, he was a bit autistic, nice guy. He explained to me in every freaking detail One Punch Man. How it started out with bad art, and then this other guy came and found it and redrew it. And then he was showing me the art. And, it was charming until I had to get work done. But yes, that is the exception. That is terrible art, but the story was so good that it's one of the few exceptions. I'll dare say that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that art wasn't that great in the first run. I know people are slamming their desks in horror right now, but it was charming and it worked. The real test to see if people stay in church. I absolutely agree. Sound Engraver. The Tex Willer series is fantastic. I also recommend editions of Lee Falk's The Phantom and Mandrake the Magician. Okay. One Punch Man is the spiritual successor of Superman, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I got to read that. I got to read the mangas that I'm interested in. There's One Punch Man, Vinland Saga, and My Hero Academia, because they seem to be like the closest to superheroes. Did I chase you away, RJ? Am I talking too
No,
much?
I'm just thinking of going back to mainstream. I think we talked about this before, but there's a one issue, I think it was like 1982 of Wolverine versus Spider-Man. That is a beautiful book to own.
That is the death of Ned Leeds. Yeah, I love that comic. And you know what's funny? This just took me back. But I remember seeing that cover and Wolverine's, extending with the claws out and Spider-Man's dodging. And I'm thinking, Wolverine's trying to kill Spider-Man. Like, when Batman and Plastic Man fight, they could punch each other, you know what I mean, and shake it off. Or if Batman and Green Arrow fist fight, you know what I mean? But Wolverine is got knives on his hand. He's trying to murder Spider-Man. And I was always like, you can't recover from that. I know it's a trope where superheroes fight each other. In issue 2 of Patriarch, I'm gonna have Raven and Patriarch fight, but like Wolverine is stab man. That he stabs you with knives. How do you have a misunderstanding? And like, dude, you tried to stab me. Okay, we're friends now. Epic Comics. What is this? The Epic Comics miniseries Wolverine and Havoc is really good read. Yeah, that is like one of the first times. Was that Sienkiewicz? I figured who the artist was. I remember that. If you want to read manga with more Western sensibility, I recommend City Hunter, Lupin the Third, and Space Adventure. I've never heard of these. Okay, never heard of these. Cool. I'd also recommend all the out-of-print DC Archives editions of the Golden Age Plastic Man. Yeah, the Joe Cole ones. Yeah, Joe Cole was a genius.
I think you can find a lot of those online too. Just, not pirated online, but through archived comics. Again, there's a site that just archives old comics that have gone into public domain.
Yeah, there's a bunch of sites. Yeah, they're fun to look through. So I finally got the computer to work. So this is Arkham, who already went to bed. But this is his first draft for a cover for Greek mythology story that we're working on. What do you think of that?
That's very nice. That reminds me of, again, Eclipse Comics. That's what that looks like for a cover.
Yeah, I usually for the covers for my comics, I tell the artist do whatever you want. If it's abjectly bad, which hasn't happened yet, I'll say something. But I feel like let the artist do the cover. They drew the inside. They know it better than me. So the only thing I said is, remember, here's the logo, and I sent them the actual trade dress. You know what I mean? So it's going to cover up some of your art. But I'm real proud of Arkham. He's never drawn a comic book before. This is literally his first comic book work, and look at that. And you got to see some of the pages that he's handed in. But I love it. I love it. He does such good backgrounds. I mean, his you can see his human figures are good, but man, I think backgrounds are people's weaknesses. And you got Renzo. Renzo is another guy who just puts it all into the background. I have what's going on? I have I did this. Oh yeah, okay. I have an artist that, I tell her, put more in the background. You can't just have the two people talking.
It's like an Art Nouveau style that he did for the cover.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
He specifically said Art Nouveau. Yeah, I like that. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I'd also recommend. Oh, we talked about that. Pretty nice. Thank you, Sound Engraver. We've been talking now for 2 hours, so I'm getting sleepy. I gotta go to bed. Anything you want to say before we close up?
I have to throw one more on the pile, John. I
Sure.
really liked let's say Iron Man around 150. It's before the Armor Wars, and that run basically where it kind of starts where Tony Stark becomes a drunk, and then he hands over the armor to Rhodey. That is included in that story arc, but that is really good if you're somebody who likes Iron Man. That's a really, really good. I think probably the best run of Iron Man.
Yeah, I'm trying. Was that Bob Layton?
I think so.
And Mark Grunwald, I think, was the writer.
Bob Layton, I know, did the art, but I don't know who the writer was.
Yeah, that was good. That was good run. That I can't help it. I got that issue that you're talking about in a. Do you remember going to like Toys R Us and there was like 3 comic books in a bag?
Kmart. I'd always get them from Kmart.
Yes, yeah, Kmart, Toys R Us, all those toy stores, and they would have a great one in the front and a great one, and then in the middle was like crap, like Richie Rich or something. You're like, oh man, but at least I got 2 good comics. That one of them was Iron Man.
Yep.
John RJ, any thoughts on the attempted revival of several public domain superheroes known as Project Superpowers? I like Project Superpowers.
So did I.
Yeah, I like Project Superpowers, but it did the same thing everybody does, including Alan Moore, when they take public domain characters. They were asleep or in suspended animation or in another dimension or whatever, and then they come back. Set them in the past. There's nothing wrong with setting them in the past. Like, I don't want to use public domain characters. I want to play with my own toys. But if like anybody would force me to do it, but you know what I'm saying? If I had to, they would be set. Like, I'm not bringing the Shadow into now or the Green Flame or the Green Llama. Any of these characters, they were for the past. Keep them in the past, and that to me is one of the problems whenever they're DC reboots. They make Superman's appearance more and more modern. It doesn't work. Superman and Batman, I don't know. They could only have come out when they did, and it's straining credibility to. Oh look, they only showed up 4 years ago. Well, then who are the other superheroes? Why do they have this code? Superman is the role model. You guys are great to listen to. I'm taking a break from messaging my girlfriend. Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you to say that. Thanks. Hit like, subscribe, super chat. We might as well take advantage of this. RJ lives in the woods. He doesn't even have a floor. Can you guys super chat him?
I've been laying down flooring for the last 3 days.
Are you? It's warming up by you?
Well, it rained today, so.
Yeah, it rained. My car was covered in that salt. Like a salt coating. And I was like, I'm not going to wash it today because it's going to snow again. It's like, and then it rained today, so thanks. It got all that salt off my car.
I got a new car just last year, and I keep on wanting to wash it, but I kind of live on a dirt road, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I know it. Where I live, the roads are bad. Like I wanted a cheap. I wanted to live as cheap as possible, so we moved way out Long Island. There's no sewers. We got cesspools, and forget about fixing the roads. We live as close as you could get to hillbilly place. It'd still be in New York. We're far away from the commies, so that's good. Thank you, Sound Engraver. Well, I got to go to bed. I haven't won the lottery yet, so I got to go to work. So I got to go to bed. So anything you want to say before we close up, RJ?
No, I think this was a good stream. I got to think about some really good comics I hadn't thought about for a while. And hopefully people out there looking for good comics will take a couple of recommendations from it.
Yeah, and if you do, hop in and tell us what you thought. If you bought these comics from our recommendation and you loved them or you hated them, one of these Wednesday nights, say something. Come in the stream and let us have it, or say, tell us how much you loved it. That would be kind of fun. That would be fun. But thanks a lot, everybody. And RJ, I look forward to talking every Wednesday night. I really enjoy this. This is a lot of fun. Thank you. All right.
No problem. Thank you, everybody else, for showing up.
And at this point, it's time to say goodbye, kids.
it.